The Eternal Gateway, Marwat, Laki Marwat, Then and Now, 1848 to 49 to present. Reflections on Chapter 7 of A Year on the Punjab Frontier by Herbert Benjamin Edwardes. Introduction. The Living Chronicle of a Frontier Land. In the annals of British colonial literature on the northwest frontier, few works possess the intimate observational power of Herbert Benjamin Edwardes's A Year on the Punjab Frontier, 1848 to 49. Among its memorable chapters, the seventh, devoted to Marwat, the sister country of Banu, stands as a remarkable testament to how geography, climate, and human resilience intertwine to forge a distinctive civilization. Edwardes, a political officer of rare literary sensibility, traversed these lands during a pivotal moment in Anglo-Sikh relations, leaving behind a portrait so vivid that it continues to illuminate the region nearly 2 centuries later. This expository essay undertakes a dual journey. First, through Edwardes' own words and observations as he encountered Marwat in the mid-19th century, and second, through the transformation of that same landscape into modern Laki Marwat district of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. By weaving together historical documentation, contemporary realities, and personal reflection, I aim to demonstrate that while much has changed in material terms, roads, industry, governance, the essential character of this frontier land endures. The passes still guard the valley, the sandy soil still challenges cultivation, and the Marwat people still maintain their fierce independence and proud tribal identity. Edwardes' chapter thus becomes not merely a historical document but a living chronicle, a window through which we can observe both the permanence and the transience of human settlement in one of South Asia's most remarkable frontier regions. The Geographic Canvas, Passes, Plains, and Permanent Features. The strategic landscape, Edwardes opens his chapter with a precise geographic delineation that remains accurate to this day. Marwat, he writes, lies immediately south of Banu, sharing the same broad, hill-encircled valley separated from the Derajat of the Indus by the lower Batani hills. The boundaries he describes, the Viziri and Batani ranges to the west and south, the Katak hills near Esakel to the east, and the open northern approach toward Banu, continue to define the district's administrative and cultural contours. What Edwardes grasped with remarkable clarity was the transitional nature of Marwat. It stands neither entirely in the high mountains nor fully in the plains, but occupies a liminal space between the rugged highlands and the agricultural lowlands. This geographic ambiguity has shaped every aspect of Marwat's history, from its susceptibility to invasion to its role as a trading corridor between Punjab and Afghanistan. The passes, gateways of history. The most significant geographic feature Edwardes describes is the intricate network of passes that connect Marwat to the outside world. The Pezu Pass, which he identifies as the most important and frequented route, remains central to the region's identity. Edwardes' description of it as a broad, gradually sloping passage, mostly suitable for vehicles, testifies to its enduring utility, while his account of establishing a watchtower and garrison here to curb robberies reveals the British strategy of controlling frontier trade routes. In the early 21st century, the Pezu Pass continues to function as a vital artery. The Peshawar-Dera Ismail Khan route, now traversed by modern transportation, still winds through the same dramatic landscapes that Edwardes described. Photographs from 1937 show Indian Army soldiers on troop trains passing through the Pezu Pass, their Vickers machine guns mounted on carriages for protection against tribal attacks, a vivid reminder of the pass's strategic significance in both British and post-colonial military thinking. Today, the pass serves primarily civilian purposes, carrying commercial traffic and facilitating regional connectivity, yet it retains its historic character as a gateway between worlds. Edwardes also catalogues other passes: Cutlar, Siggy, Byhin, Tubby, each with varying suitability for different transport. His systematic documentation of these routes reflects the British imperial project of cartographic mastery, but it also demonstrates genuine appreciation for the geographic logic that governed movement in this frontier region. For local communities, these passes were not simply trade routes, but lifelines connecting them to markets, kin, and religious centres. Sheikh Badin, the eternal landmark. One of Edwards's most evocative geographic observations concerns Sheikh Badin, the high peak that dominates the landscape. On clear days, he writes, the high peak of Sheikh Badin is visible from afar, marking the landscape dramatically. This mountain, standing as a silent sentinel over the valley, has witnessed centuries of human activity: caravans passing, armies marching, communities cultivating, and now industrial development transforming the surrounding terrain. When I read this chapter, I recognise many places from my own journeys. Travelling from Dera Ismail Khan toward Peshawar, I have watched the Pezu Hills appear on the horizon, passed through Pezu Bazaar, and travelled the winding Pezu Pass. On exceptionally clear days, I have seen Sheikh Badin's distinctive silhouette, a connection across time to Edwardes, who must have gazed at the same peak with similar wonder. This continuity, the physical permanence of the landscape against which human history unfolds, forms the bedrock of our historical consciousness. The mountains remain. Empires rise and fall around them. Climate and agriculture, the precarious balance. The triennial cycle of drought and abundance. Few passages in Edwards's chapter are as haunting as his description of Marwat's agricultural uncertainty. The soil, he notes, is light sandy soil, a desert 2 years out of 3, a garden in the blessed third when rains come. This triennial rhythm governed every aspect of life. When rains failed, communities faced famine. When they came generously, the land transformed into a garden. This precarious existence explains much about Marwat's social structure. Communities that depend entirely on rainfall cannot support dense settlement or elaborate institutions. Hence Edwards's observation that, unlike Banu, Marwat possessed no native forts or walled villages. The people lived in twig and thorn structures, impermanent dwellings that could be abandoned when drought struck. This adaptation to environmental uncertainty, born of necessity, became part of the Marwat character. Resilience in the face of adversity, independence from fixed settlement, water scarcity, the persistent challenge. The single most striking detail in Edwards's account concerns water. He records that many villages possessed no wells because groundwater lay too deep beneath the surface. Women often travelled extraordinary distances carrying water from distant streams. The inhabitants of Tidokol sometimes fetched water from the Gumbila River over 14 miles away. This daily ordeal, unimaginable to those accustomed to modern water infrastructure, reveals the fundamental constraints that shaped Marwat's pre-industrial existence. Today, the situation has improved significantly. Canal irrigation projects, the Pezu Dam, and modern well drilling technology have brought greater water security. According to district statistics, approximately 75% of the population remains involved in agriculture, though only 26.81% of the total district area is under cultivation. Wheat, the major irrigated crop, covers 57,362 acres, alongside maize, gram, and limited rice cultivation. Yet water management remains a persistent challenge. The sandy soil still drains quickly, and rainfall remains insufficient for barani cultivation in many areas. Climate change, with its unpredictable precipitation patterns, threatens to reintroduce the instability that Edwardes documented. The persistence of agricultural challenges. The continuity of agricultural challenges across nearly 2 centuries is striking. Edwards's Marwat was a land where prosperity depended almost entirely on nature and where communities lived in constant anxiety about the next harvest. Modern Laki Marwat, despite significant infrastructure improvements, still grapples with similar challenges. The same geographic factors, sandy soil, uncertain rainfall, dependence on distant water sources, continue to shape agricultural possibilities. This persistence suggests that environmental constraints cannot be entirely overcome by technology. They can be mitigated, managed, and partially resolved, but the fundamental geography remains. The Marwat people's historical adaptations, their mobility, their flexible settlement patterns, their reliance on trade and livestock alongside agriculture, emerged from this environmental reality and continue to inform their relationship with the land. The people, tribal identity and social character. Edwards's observations on Marwat character. Perhaps the most famous passages in Chapter 7 concern the Marwat people themselves. Edwards, with his characteristic flair for vivid description, writes, "They are one of the finest races of the Trans-Indus, tall, muscular, fair, and often rosy-cheeked, and in the evident purity of their Afghan blood form a striking contrast to their mixed neighbours, the Bunuchis." These words, written in the racialist idiom of the 19th century, must be read critically. Edwards's praise for the Marwat's Afghan purity reflects the colonial fascination with racial typology and the perceived hierarchy of peoples. Yet beneath the problematic language lies genuine admiration for Marwat qualities, their height, strength, dignity, and hospitality, characteristics that contemporary observers might recognize as distinctive of Pashtun culture more broadly. Tribal structure and kinship networks. The Marwat tribe, as Edwards correctly identifies, belongs to the Lohani branch of the Pashtuns, specifically to the Lodi section. The tribal name derives from Marwat Khan Lodi, and the Marwats are also known as Spin Lohani, the white faction of the Lohanis. Their kin include other Lohani tribes such as Miyakel, Daulatkel, and Tatur, groups that continue to share historical connections across the modern district boundaries separating Laki Marwat from Dera Ismail Khan and Tank. The sub-tribes of the Marwats, including Sikandarkel, Achukel, Beramkel, Musakel, and Mamakel, maintain active identities. These tribal divisions, which Edwards only hints at, structure social relations, marital alliances, and political affiliation even today. The persistence of tribal identity across nearly 2 centuries of political change, from Afghan rule to Sikh conquest to British colonialism to Pakistani independence, testifies to the resilience of these social structures. Women and social customs. Edwards's observations on Marwat customs regarding women deserve particular attention. He notes their relatively generous treatment of women compared to other Pashtun communities, a quality he found distinctive. The episode of Marwat Amazons, hundreds of Marwat women surrounding him with petitions requesting reductions in taxation, struck him as unusual enough to merit special notice. This observation suggests that Marwat women historically enjoyed greater public visibility and agency than in some neighbouring regions. While contemporary Pashtun society maintains strong gender divisions, the historical precedent Edwards documents offers a more complex picture. Marwat women's roles, both in the 19th century and today, have been shaped by economic necessity, particularly in water collection, livestock management, and agricultural labour, as well as cultural norms. The chocolate-coloured turbans Edwards mentions as a Marwat distinctive feature have largely disappeared from daily use, replaced by more standard Pashtun headgear. Yet the pride in appearance, the dignified bearing, and the frank manners he admired continue to characterise Marwat men and women. Shared historical identity across the frontier. One of the most significant aspects of Edwards's account, often overlooked, is his implicit recognition of the deep connections between Marwat and the broader Daman region. Mount Stuart Elphinstone had earlier noted that Daman begins at the Pezu Hills and stretches southward toward Dera Ghazi Khan. This geographic continuity corresponds to tribal continuity. The Marwats share kinship with Lahani tribes across the modern district boundary in Dera Ismail Khan, where Pashtuns constitute approximately 22% of the population. In areas like Punyala near Pezu, Marwat Pashtuns form the overwhelming majority, testifying to migration patterns and kinship networks that transcend colonial administrative boundaries. This shared identity across the Indus frontier has persisted despite the divisions imposed by British district-making and later Pakistani administrative reorganisation. The Marwats remain, as Edwardes observed, a people whose identity is rooted in both place and kinship, a combination that has proved remarkably durable. Political history, from Durrani rule to British intervention, pre-colonial political structures. Edwardes traces Marwat's political history with admirable concision. The Marwats first paid tribute to the Durrani kings of Kabul, a light obligation of camels, horsemen, and Hindu taxes. Later, they came under the authority of the Nawab of Dera Ismail Khan, who steadily increased taxation. The movement from relatively light Durrani tribute to more oppressive Nawabi taxation and, finally, to Sikh extraction constitutes a pattern familiar across the frontier. The Marwats, like many Pashtun tribes, maintained significant autonomy even under successive empires. Their political organisation, based on jirgas, councils of elders, and tribal leadership, provided mechanisms for collective decision-making and resistance to external control. Edwards's account of the Marwats' role in regional conflicts, including their participation in Ahmad Shah Abdali's campaigns and their later conflicts with wazirs, reveals their position as active political agents rather than passive subjects. Sikh administration and the Laki fort. The Sikh conquest of Marwat in the early 19th century marked a significant shift in governance. Edwards's account of how Sikh officials persuaded the Marwat chiefs to permit construction of a fort at Laki under promises of moderate taxation, only to impose heavier exactions once the fort was completed, illustrates the manipulative approach the Sikhs sometimes employed. The fort at Laki, built on the left bank of the Gumal, became a symbol of Sikh authority and a point of contention. Its construction led to the Putka poll tax, resentment, and eventually open rebellion in 1847. The Marwats, supported by neighbouring wazirs and Kataks, besieged the fort before the revolt was suppressed. Edwards's account of these events reflects both his appreciation for Marwat resistance and his critical attitude towards Sikh governance, which he condemns for excessive taxation and corruption. British intervention and administrative reform. Edwardes presents himself as introducing important reforms after his arrival in the region. The abolition of the hated poll tax and its replacement with a different land assessment established a basis for more stable revenue administration. Whether viewed from a colonial or local perspective, this episode reveals the centrality of taxation in frontier politics. Much of the chapter is devoted not to battles, but to the practical problems of governing a difficult country where revenue collection itself could provoke armed resistance. Edwards's criticism of Sikh governor Dewan Daulat Rai, whom he accuses of excessive taxation, corruption, and harsh treatment of the population, reflects both genuine administrative grievances and the typical colonial argument that British rule represented an improvement over its predecessors. Modern readers must recognise this perspective while appreciating the historical information it conveys. Economic transformation. From caravans to cement, traditional economy, trade, agriculture, and livestock. Edwardes Marwat maintained a mixed economy of agriculture, livestock and trade. The passes he describes were not merely military routes, but commercial arteries connecting Marwat to markets in Tank, Dera Ismail Khan, and beyond. The caravans that traversed the Pezu Pass carried goods that sustained the region's economy and connected it to broader trading networks. Livestock, particularly camels, played a crucial role in this economy. The light tribute of camels and horsemen that the Marwats paid to Kabul reflects the importance of animals as both wealth and means of transport. The absence of permanent forts, which Edwardes attributes to sandy soil, also reflects a pastoral economy in which mobility was valued over fixed settlement. Industrial development. The Laki Cement Revolution. The most dramatic economic transformation in modern Laki Marwat is the development of the Laki Cement Factory at Pezu. Built on abundant local limestone, this industrial facility has transformed the regional economy, providing direct employment and stimulating ancillary businesses. The rugged canyons and hills that once supported only limited grazing now house one of Pakistan's major industrial complexes. This industrial development represents both opportunity and challenge. On one hand, it has brought prosperity to a historically poor region, creating jobs and connecting Laki Marwat to national economic networks. On the other hand, it has disrupted traditional patterns of land use and introduced environmental pressures that the region has rarely experienced. Infrastructure, roads, railways, and connectivity. The infrastructure improvements that have accompanied economic development have transformed Laki Marwat in ways Edwardes would find remarkable. The 343 kilometres of metalled roads, the railway connections to Issaquah, Daudkal, and Mianwali, and the modern transportation network have connected the district to national markets and networks in ways unimaginable in the 19th century. Yet the continuity beneath this transformation is equally striking. The Pezu Pass remains the primary route connecting Laki Marwat to Dera Ismail Khan and beyond. The same geographic constraints that governed Edwardes' movement continue to shape transportation patterns. The modern highways that traverse the pass follow routes that caravans have used for centuries. Continuity and change. Reflections across 2 centuries. The persistence of geographic realities. Throughout this essay, I have emphasized the remarkable continuity of geographic realities. The passes, the mountains, the sandy soil, the climate. These fundamental features of Marwat's landscape have changed only marginally in the nearly 2 centuries since Edwardes travelled through. The Pezu Pass still connects Laki Marwat to Dera Ismail Khan and Tank. Sheikh Badin still dominates the skyline. The valley still experiences the vicissitudes of rainfall that governed Edwardes' triennial cycle. This persistence of geographic realities suggests that, despite all technological and social change, the physical environment continues to shape human possibilities. The Marwat people, like their ancestors, must contend with the challenges of sandy soil, uncertain rainfall, and distant water sources. Their adaptations, resilience, mobility, tribal solidarity remain relevant precisely because the environmental challenges they address persist. The transformation of governance and politics. Where change is most evident is in governance. Edwardes' Marwat, incorporated into the British imperial system, has passed through Pakistani administration to become Laki Marwat district. The forts, such as the Sikh fort at Laki, have lost their military significance, replaced by modern administrative structures. The revenue systems Edwardes sought to reform have been transformed by national taxation and development policies, yet the underlying political realities show continuity. The Marwat people's relationship with central authority remains complex, marked by both cooperation and resistance. Tribal structures, though modified, continue to organise social life and political action. The same tensions Edwardes documented, between central control and local autonomy, between taxation and resentment, between reform and tradition, continue to animate the region's politics. The evolution of social structures. Social structures have also transformed. The Marwats of Edwardes' account were a tribal society in a colonial frontier zone, their lives governed by customary law and lineage obligations. Modern Laki Marwat's population participates in national society, its members educated in formal schools, connected by telecommunications and media, and integrated into the Pakistani economy and polity. Yet again, beneath this transformation lies continuity. Tribal identity remains strong. Marwat people continue to marry within tribal networks, maintain tribal loyalties, and invoke tribal solidarity in both political and personal contexts. The languages and customs that distinguished Edwardes' Marwats, Pashto, hospitality, honour, remain central to identity. The specific tribal divisions Edwardes only hints at continue to organise social relations. Conclusion: The Eternal Gateway. Herbert Edwardes' Chapter 7 on Marwat offers us a remarkable gift, a detailed portrait of a frontier region at a moment of historical transition. Reading his words today, in the context of modern Laki Marwat, I experience both the pleasure of recognition and the wonder of transformation. The places he describes, the Pezu Pass, the Batani Hills, the Valley of Laki, I have visited and can visualize. The people he characterizes, the dignified, independent Marwats, I have encountered and can recognize. Yet the world he documents has largely passed away, replaced by a modern district connected to national and global networks in ways Edwardes could scarcely imagine. This dual experience of recognition and difference is the essence of historical consciousness. We recognize the enduring patterns, geographic, cultural, social, that have shaped human life across centuries. We also acknowledge the profound changes, political, economic, technological, that have transformed the conditions of that life. In writing this essay, I have sought to honour both dimensions, to show how Edwardes' text illuminates both the past and the present of Laki Marwat. The Marwat of Edwardes' account and the Laki Marwat of today are both, in different ways, gateway regions. The passes that Edwardes traversed continue to connect this valley to the broader world. The tribal networks he observed continue to link Marwat communities to kin across the frontier. The environmental challenges he documented continue to shape agricultural life. In this sense, the region remains the eternal gateway of my title, a place where worlds meet, where history accumulates, and where the enduring patterns of human adaptation to a challenging environment can still be observed. As I conclude this essay, I return to the image with which I began. Sheikh Badin visible from my roof in Draban on a clear day. That mountain which Edwardes saw and which I have seen stands as a symbol of continuity across time. Around it, the world has transformed. Empires have risen and fallen. Technology has advanced. Populations have grown. Yet the mountain remains, and the valley it overlooks remains inhabited by the descendants of the people Edwardes encountered. In this continuity, we find the deepest meaning of historical study, the recognition that we are connected across time to those who came before us, that their experiences and observations can illuminate our own, and that the places we inhabit carry the traces of all who have lived there before. The Marwat that Edwardes described was a land of sandy soil and fleeting prosperity, of proud tribes and uncertain governance. The Laki Marwat of today is a district of Pakistan, industrializing and developing, yet still marked by its history and its geography. Both are real, both are worthy of our attention. Both teach us about the resilience of human communities in the face of challenging environments. Edwardes' chapter, written nearly 2 centuries ago, remains a valuable guide to understanding this remarkable region, a gateway not only in physical space, but in historical time, connecting us to a past that continues to shape the present. Bibliography: Edwardes, Herbert Benjamin. A Year on the Punjab Frontier, 1848–49. London, Richard Bentley, 1851. Elphinstone, Mountstuart. An account of the Kingdom of Kabul and its dependencies in Persia, Tartary and India.